In the Earth's oldest and deepest memories, the existence of certain defenses is not for outward conquest, but merely to wrap inward an ultimate tranquility. He possessed the most ancient and delicate defense system in the entire armored dinosaur family, with hundreds of tiny, button-like bony nodules densely embedded deep within his skin, extending from his refined neck all the way to the slender tip of his tail. Yet, across tens of millions of years, this near-obsessive iron-like armor never participated in a single bloody conflict for dominance, nor did it ever leave a stinging scar on any of his kin. His entire life was dedicated to those green crevices hidden beneath ancient cedar trees, radiating with damp night dew. Tonight, by the faintly flickering hearth, let us step into his true life with this story that requires no effort to remember. Scutellosaurus shushu. In the cold entries of paleontological taxonomy and modern guidebooks, he is typically labeled as an early ornithischian dinosaur that roamed western North America, possessing an exceptionally petite and seemingly delicate frame. But in the true night of 190 million years ago, an era packed with violent continental rifting and frequent uplifting of the crust and mantle, Shushu utilized an ultra-restrained slow rhythm to live as an inward enigma. This is not a cold encyclopedia of territorial dominance and bloody plunder, but a midnight lullaby of how to completely let go under the crushing weight of the era, falling into a peaceful sleep inside the rustling friction of armored scales. On the Arizona plains of the early Jurassic, the air was forever filled with a slightly sweet, earthy fragrance born of rising geothermal heat. It was the ancient dawn of the armored dinosaurs, an era where the forest flourished excessively. Towering redwoods and bald cypresses lined with stiff needles blotted out the sky, leaving only shattered lines of golden light. Shushu stood right at the edge of this dense forest packed with existential pressure, his 1.2-meter frame weighing only a few kilograms appearing remarkably miniature beneath the shadows of ancient flora, like a tiny collector wandering into a kingdom of giants. The first turning point of his destiny was driven by an unannounced intrusion of polar cold air, burying the entire floodplain beneath a thick layer of damp, freezing fog within hours. As the temperature plummeted sharply, the dense shrubs that sustained survival froze over entirely overnight, plunging the whole forest order into absolute collapse under panic and starvation. Shushu's companions were entirely terrified by this sudden bitter cold. Relying on their agile limbs, they began an endless, blind frenzy of flight across the pitch-black forest floor. Crowding and jostling, they bit one another frantically with hardened horny beaks just to claim a shallow cave that could block the freezing wind. As their dull collisions and panicked cries echoed long into the dark night, Shushu stood right at the edge of this internal friction of the crowd, his 1.2-meter frame appearing remarkably miniature beneath the feet of giant beasts who had lost all reason to fear. Dust billowed into the air, and each vibration of the earth forced a painful protest from his every bone. At that moment, watching his usually gentle companions turn violent and distorted under the whip of fear, a profound rift of panic and tension tore open deep within Shushu's heart. He realized that the panic and ugliness displayed by those self-proclaimed giant beasts when facing the era's cold wave were far more suffocating than the cold itself. He did not meet the leader's roar filled with jealousy and intimidation, nor did he attempt to join the chaotic herd fighting to blood remnants for a vain status. Instead, on an evening when the heat receded, he turned his small body with agonizing slowness. Stepping upon the red soil fractured by the earthquake, he moved like a pine needle drifting silently through time. Without a single trace of regret, he walked away from that frantic territory, step by step, toward the desolate and quiet unknown canyon. Leaving the shelter of the clan meant Shushu had to face the apex predators of the dark night operating on laws of lightning-fast slaughter alone, such as early theropods adept at ambushing deep within the woods. In an ancient conifer forest devoid of open sightlines, a single second of oversight or panic meant a small dinosaur lacking agile turning capabilities would be ruthlessly erased by the dark. Yet within Shushu's 1.2-meter miniature frame flowed a near-detached certainty. He could not learn to dash frantically through fallen leaves to prove his existence like the predators did. Instead, he chose to carry absolute relaxation into his very marrow. He walked so slowly, due to the heavy weight of his armor scales and his short limbs, his stocky legs paused in the air for several seconds with each step, his feet pressed into the dry gravel, releasing a dull, drawn-out, and deeply therapeutic rustling sound that beat with perfect rhythm in the empty night. His posture did not resemble a retreat, but rather an act of using his body to stroke and feel every pulse of the earth. This slowness, ironically, created a beautiful resonance between him and the environment. The long trek accumulated deep, blunt pain in his limb joints, and the parallel rows of plates on his back, burdened by supporting thick keratin for so long, constantly radiated a heavy ache of fatigue. Though the surrounding environment was cool, by midnight, the chill seeping into his bones felt like countless tiny icy needles, sending a stiff tightness through his muscle fibers. He had to find an absolute sanctuary where both body and soul could anchor completely before his strength vanished entirely. On this cruel wasteland plain, survival wisdom was never determined by physical might, but by who could be the first to find a haven to steady the soul within a crisis-ridden night. Finally, as night fell completely and the winds over the plain softened, he discovered an exceptionally hidden, flat moonlit sand clearing beneath a towering sandstone canyon cliff. It was a natural harbor accidentally sealed by nature. The towering rock walls blocked the furious monsoons entirely, while the golden sand, having absorbed ample scorching sunlight during the day, now radiated an enchanting, generous warmth. In the shallow documentaries of later generations obsessed with dinosaur battles, the small Scutellosaurus lacking tail clubs or giant horns is routinely deconstructed as an awkward transitional species, as if lacking offensive weapons doomed it to become meat for predators. Yet this arrogant view completely fails to read the profound wisdom of restraint in Shushu's bones. His armor was not meant to display power, but served as an invisible psychological wall allowing him to masterfully evade the storms of the era. In his third year of living in this sandstone canyon sanctuary, on a midnight when the tide surged with unusual power, danger inevitably pierced the defense of the cliff, descending upon this quiet haven in its coldest form. A sharp-eyed carnivorous early theropod, several times Shushu's size, followed the faint trace of life, utilizing the shadows to slip silently to the edge of the clearing where he nested. It was a piercing moment where the entire canyon floor seemed to freeze. The predator's shadow lunged from the dark rock shadows, its heavy breath chilling the surrounding air. The ancient cicadas singing in the dark folded their wings instantly, the shrubs fell deathly still, and the moisture in the air seemed to freeze into ice under the carnivore's ravenous gaze. Yet, facing an ambush terrifying enough to shatter the souls of any smaller species, Shushu displayed a near-sacred, breathtaking composure. He released no useless roars to vent his fear, nor did he bolt frantically like his kin. Instead, he dropped his center of gravity entirely, grounding his miniature body firmly onto the dry sand slope. He ceased all movement completely, burying his head deep between his dry roots and laying his long tail smoothly along his side, transforming into a gray coastal stone devoid of life's warmth. In the occasional flash of moonlight tearing the cloud gaps, his spine, covered in fine scales and nodules, reflected a cold, heavy density like rock. This was no food to easily rip apart, but an impassable defense rising abruptly from the ground. This siege of will lasted for a full half-hour. Ultimately, before Shushu's rock-like, unshakable restraint, the madness in the predator's eyes was replaced by despondency, forcing it to retreat step by step into the dark canyon shadows, carrying away its heavy exhaustion. With the thrilling confrontation dissolved, midnight in the ancient canyon welcomed its most tender and fated hour. The heavy clouds split under the night wind, and a faint, emerald-tinted moonlight filtered from the sky, illuminating the tiny sanctuary where Shushu rested and painting the entire clearing with a sacred silver edge. The heavy clouds vanished entirely, revealing the ancient starry sea above, so dense it could draw tears. The sky was filled with unknown infinity, as colossal emerald nebulas spun slowly in the deep dark, casting down a soft, healing celestial glow. While the cold air howled above the cliffs, within this warm sand clearing, the temperature remained as cozy and constant as a primitive mammal's nest. Shushu completely dropped all defenses, beginning an exquisitely comfortable, deeply immersive pre-sleep ritual inside this sanctuary meant for him alone. He adjusted his posture gradually, pressing his heavy belly, exhausted and stiffened from the long trek and the recent confrontation, flat and tight against the loose sand warmed by the sun. At that moment, the residual heat accumulated within the sand all day began to seep into him like warm spring water along the softer textures of his belly skin. The warmth penetrated his thick subcutaneous tissues, swathed his tense muscle fibers, and rapidly spread to every joint dulled by long travel, dispelling the sticky chill within his body. Next, with a near slow-motion elegance, he curled his body tightly within his nest, front limbs tucked under his chest and his long tail wrapped perfectly around him, forming a tight circular ball. In this curled posture, the hundreds of button-like tiny osteoderms on his back, with each drawn-out, slow deep breath, began to produce a delicate, rhythmic physical friction between the subtle relaxation and tightening of his skin. Sha, sha, Shah, it was a sound so faint it resembled a gentle midnight breeze rustling through a dried reed bed, or clean sand flowing slowly through the hourglass of time. This was not merely the friction of scales, but a natural white noise lullaby performed by Shu Shu using his own body for the listener in the vast ancient night, consuming every shred of anxiety and residual burden until the vast moonlight returned to infinite peace. The end of life arrived silently and without a sound. For Shu Shu, it was merely the most peaceful and enchanting evening among countless deeply comfortable nights. It was an ordinary end to a dry season, the air sweet with the faint caramel aroma of drying plants, while thousands of gentle meteors streaked across the dark sky. Shu Shu was too old to the point where the ancient blood pump within his chest could no longer deliver warmth to the ends of his armored frame, and every breath required enduring a calcified wear deep inside his joints. Yet he showed no panic of finality. On that star-filled night, he simply returned to the center of the warm sand hollow that had accompanied him for a lifetime, laying down slowly in his most familiar curled posture. He cradled his tired head gently within a soil groove cushioned perfectly by fallen leaves, its texture coarse and warm, offering him the ultimate psychological support and reconciliation. He began to completely relax his long spine, which had been tensed for so long against the world's prejudice, letting the residual warmth of the sand soothe his entire frame like a final heat therapy. As the warm gravity took full custody of his skeleton, a localized sandstone cliff collapse triggered by prolonged rain sent soft, fine red sand pouring smoothly into this hollow. Without fear, and without a single cry, this supreme traveler of plain relaxation slipped directly from mortal dreams into eternal sleep, tucked inside his favorite moonlit sanctuary and cradled by the comforting white noise of wind. Over the next 100 million years, oceans turned into lands. This ancient landmass underwent countless rifts and reshapes, its once flourishing plains compressing and rising into the cold desert strata of today. Yet Shu Shu's body, maintaining that perfect curled posture and tightly sealed under fine sand and silt, underwent mineralized change, fusing beautifully with the cold stone until every tiny vertebra and trace of tiny osteoderm became an exquisite part of the Earth's skeleton. 200 million years passed like an invisible torrent, washing away all pride and arrogance, yet freezing Shu Shu's restraint and tranquility forever within the ribs of the Earth. Now, this specimen rests silently inside the climate-controlled central display case of the modern museum, continuing to exude a serene presence to every visitor under the soft light. The land that once felt his weight has long shifted, and those towering ancient trees have transformed into coal deep underground, yet the breathing rhythm Shu Shu left behind on that night seems to echo faintly under the modern city's night sky. In this modern world filled with survival anxieties, where everyone is forced to sprint and crushed by life's heavy pace, this story of an ancient hermit sleeping in slow motion upon the warm flats is your most grounded sanctuary tonight. There is no need to ponder tomorrow's hustles, nor any reason to mind the mundane conflicts that leave you exhausted and tight. The earth will cradle your tired body with the gentlest gravity and endless night, just as it accepted Shu Shu eons ago, washing away all your unease and tension. Your bed radiates a pleasant warmth, and your soft duvet offers the most comforting physical embrace, mirroring that warm soil and loose sand that safely covered Shu Shu eons ago. Outside the window, a modern city wind might be blowing, the curtains swaying slightly in the dark. These are but gentle echoes of the breeze from that ancient valley traveling through deep time. Drop all defenses and weight from your heart, listen to this story that requires no effort to remember, and let your slow, deep, and measured breathing carry you away. Slowly, close your eyes. Good night, Shu Shu the Scutellosaurus. Good night, to every soul shedding its heavy armor tonight, returning to an inner mountain-like peace.